days. It's been our pleasure to have on campus
Our distinguished
Norwegian composer Arne Nordheim. Mr. Nordheim's visit has been sponsored by both music
department and University Lectures Committee. I want to publicly thank James Lowry, the University Lectures Committee, for their support. Also, I'd like to thank two students who have furnished equipment for us that will enable you to hear much of what Mr. Nordheim is going to be talking about this evening. Dick Rinskoff and Bruce Trump, who provided tape and amplifying equipment for us for the lecture this evening. Mr. Nordheim's credentials are extremely impressive. Many compositions for orchestra, chorus, and other media. He's been interested in electronic sound since about 1961. He won the Bergen Festival Prize in 1961, I believe, and as a composer of the film score for the movie One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. Among his other commissions is music for the Scandinavian Pavilion at Expo 70 at Osaka. I guess that his topic for tonight is going to pertain mostly to electronic music and specifically to the electronic transformation of natural sounds. So without further ado, I'll introduce our distinguished guest and a very fine and warm human being, Arne Nordheim.
It's rather strange to hear that one are distinguished, you know. I'm not used to that. But I really enjoy to be here, and I've had a few days at the campus running around, being exhausted, and I think I have the feeling that I've been talking all the time. So those of you who went to my lecture this morning will probably recognize few of the sentences, but I will try to give them a new meaning then. I think beside the question mark, you know, which on the blackboard, it's another mark which are very basic, and that's the arrow. I think without the arrow we couldn't live in a way. And I think the question mark first starts in the composer's attitude, like this why, you know. You start always to think about the why. Why are you doing this, and why are you not doing something else? And knowing that it seems very meaningless in a world like this, you know, to sit down and puzzle with small sounds, treat sounds, and try to fit sounds together to a kind of a form, you know, which is called composition. But I think a kind of an answer is that all people, and to be private, I have myself, you heard it this morning, probably when I talked about the vision, and that's the arrow. The arrow pointing to a kind of a result. You know the result, but you have no idea really when you start with the problem how to reach the result. Gary Whitten mentioned that I'd been interested in electronic music since 1961 or around there. I really have. I have been interested in unusual sounds, I think, all my life. And in the unusual signs, it's a lot of things you can't really explain. You know, you are very attracted to them, or you dislike them, or things like this. But when you have the vision, as in a way I have some visions, and I try to follow that so-called inner arrow. It starts with a question mark and ends up stretch it out to an arrow, you know. Try to reach a kind of a result. So what we are going to talk about today is two compositions I made. That's a kind of a megalomania, you know, to talk of two compositions on the same evening. The first composition is Solitaire. and the other composition is Parche. This was written in 1968, and this was written in 1970. There went the question mark. Then, when I was thinking of Solitaire, it started off really with a poem by Baudelaire from Fleur du Mal, and you know, he's not clear at all in a way. You know, it's floating, but he has some beautiful blends and mixture of words, which fascinates me. So I had a poem, took a poem, a few lines from a poem strike me very hard, you know, like a hit. It talked about the fantastic world where light and sounds blend. And this Solitaire was made as an opening cantata for a big museum of modern art in Oslo, and was also a part, you know, it was a light show and it was all this thing to it. But today only the sound aspects of it. I started with the words, and before that, you know, arrows are another thing with the arrow, you know, they can go in all directions. They can go back and they can go the other way, up and down. And to go back to the really the source of my imagination, and the first feeling, in a way, the vibration of the vision, sound vision, was an announcer in the Norwegian radio reading news. It was a beautiful voice, you know, erased and fall in some kind of curves, and I was very fascinated about this voice. So I started to listen to this voice, and I forgot, you know. So now and then you just listen to the voice, and you forget. In a way, you forget the message. You start to listen to the music in it, and you forget the message. So now and then I forgot even important messages through that voice. But I was listening to her beautiful sound. So I started to combine ideas, you know, that comes from everywhere, from getting up in the morning, shaving, you know, going to a shop, meeting people, take telephone calls, and all this. It's a part of the game. So I went on and started, and then I got the commission, and then I linked this thing together, and it's many other things, of course, which are rather so private that I can't mention it for you, right? So it went on, and it turned out that I wanted this special voice to read the poem by Baudelaire.
Quand il jette en dansant son bruit vif et moqueur, ce monde rayonnant de métal et de pierre me ravit en extase, et j'aime avec fureur que les choses sous le son se mêlent à la lumière.
I am madly or desperately in love with the situation where light and sounds blends. That's the meaning. So I then had a commission to do the work, and I took this poem with me. I brought it to Warsaw. I said, basic material, first step in the direction of the arrow, basic material, transform this voice. I cut the voice in pieces. I destroyed the semantics of dear Baudelaire, and he started, of course, his rotating in the grave, you know, because, I made the process very, very close to the process of photo technique. You know, you have one exposure over the other. So I cut the words. I selected some of the the beautiful, for me, most meaningful rhythms in the language, and I exposed the one over the other, so that you get the whole poem is there, but the semantics are distorted. It's completely ruined, but all the words are there. But for me, in a meaningful, rhythmical, and and sounding way.
Quand, dans, vital, j'ai, sans, et, en, moqueur, dans, ce, son, gra, mon, ré, dit, bruit, rayonnant, exif, de, tal, et, métal, moqueur, ce, de, mon, pierre, rayonnant, gravi, métal, dans,
You should, in a way, memorize this. I will force you to it because I'm going to play it a lot of times. This piece, because it's really the source of the whole piece, and it's also gives not only the sound, but it does a lot to the different kind of manipulations with the sound as well. So the Studio Warsaw, you know, a studio creates you in a way. When you get to an electronic studio, if you go to Köln, to the Cologne, I mean, you will make some quite other sounds than you do in Warsaw. And if you go to the studio in Paris, you will make some quite other sound than you do in Warsaw or Cologne. And when I read the proposal by Dr. White for a studio here at the campus, and when this studio hopefully in a short time will be realized, then this will have quite other possibilities again. And the facilities in the studio and the atmosphere in the studio, of course, will infect on the composer's way of thinking. So you have to think. When I came to the studio in Warsaw, they have a lot of equipment which can transform sound very well. It's not so good to make the Moog and Buchla synthesized kind of sounds, you know. It's not good for this thing at all, but to transform, for instance, voices and things like that, it's excellent. So then, as a result also of the fact that I arrived in Warsaw with this sound, made the piece to sound as it sounds. So, let's I went to the studio, and one of the first things I wanted to do was to take away. I mean, I had distorted the meaning of the words, right? And I wanted to go further. I wanted even to distort the sound, the voice. But I wanted to keep some very, and I think very atavistic. Is that the all right word? You understand? Atavistic. I mean, the feeling that it remember you of things that you never have experienced. I mean, the feeling that this is basic to you. And I think that the spoken word and the way we are talking to each other are very basic. So I wanted to keep the shall we say the basic feeling of language, but still transform the sound so far that the voice went away. So let's let's make a 0. That's also a very good sign. 0. It's very easy to draw. So let's go from 0 to somewhere below 0. And if we think that this is going the bass way, I wanted to reach a point here, which I wanted to record. This point should be very deep sound. So I went to a ring modulator, and those of you who were at the 210 this morning heard that about the ring modulator. It's a way to modulate sounds, to shift really to manipulate with the frequency of the sound and to create rather new sounds out of other sounds. So let's take the speech down. Let's take the distorted words or chopped words of Baudelaire down, so far down that even he can't recognize, and he will probably stop his rotation. So let's go very deep down with the sound through the ring modulator and see what we can find there. First the voice.
Quand, dans, vital, j'ai, sans, et, en, moqueur, dans, ce, son, gra, mon, ré, dit, bruit, rayonnant, exif, détal, et, métal, cœur, ce, de, mon,
Still, we have the rhythmical. What is the structure of the speaking? But it's not anymore the language. I went back to the original sources, the language, just for educational reason, you know. So let's see now. Let's go the other way around. Let's go up, you know. And then I can say that the ring modulator is working at the same, in a way, the same principle as the used by the Bell telephone companies or any other telephone companies when they are sending many speeches on the same line at the same time. They transform it just a little bit up or down. It depends on the system and then on the wave. And then they have in the other side of the receiver, who picks up the receiver and say hello. He will then it's a decoder working and takes the sound back to so he can understand what he's saying. So instead of having a decoder, then you know I just have the sound as it is coming out of the transformation. Let's go the other way down, up. Same voice. Same material, same poet, same composer.
Quand et dans l'hiver, je sens et en mon cœur dans ce sera mon rêve,
I leave to this very inventive audience now to take those two squares, which means that I have recorded this and I have stored this away in a very heavy way. I stored it on tape. I have seen now the proposal from for a new studio here on the campus, which will easy this process, and it's a lot of places that think of easy to make this more easy, the process of memorizing the sounds, you know, I mean store it away and push the button and it's back. But here it's old-fashioned studio work, and it's worked on so that I have the two things now, same rhythm but different sounds. I mean I leave to you to put them two together. I won't do it myself. I think you can do it, and you will have two levels of sound created from a kind of S.0, which are the voice, which are the chopped voice in a special, my special rhythm and my special the hang-ups on the beautiful sound in this voice. And I ask you to play with this. It's very easy. It's already on the edge of being a composition, a two-part invention or whatever you like to call it. Let's see now. I'm quite sure that you heard the voice mentioning the word metal. The metal is also playing a part in the piece. It's metal. It's metal and the sound of voice, and it's also some electronic sounds which comes from divided tones of very pure sine tones, which are a bit out of pitch, so it creates what's another of my hang-ups, the interferences, you know, the slow-moving interferences, which occurs from very slight collisions between the, for instance, the octaves, the tempered octave. So she mentioned, or Baudelaire did, mention the metal. So I think the most metal of all metal I know, which really the metal is the metal, it's a sound from the triangle. It's so metal that you can't believe it, or you better do. It's so much metal in a triangle, and it's just like a bunch of keys, you know. It's so much metal in there. So I recorded very tiny metal sound, and these are all the metal sounds which are in the piece. It's a few strokes on the metal on the triangle. This little tiny instrument, you know, hit by another metal. So metal meets metal, and that's quite a meeting. I mean, acoustically seen. So I started to record just a few strokes of this, and I what's it called? I multiplied it, you know, through the technique of recording and recording again and recording again and recording again. So it gets into very tight texture, but it's very high. It's so high up that it's almost, you know, it feels like somebody's taking a pin of metal and tickling your eardrums, you know, like this. And it's rather good material for transposing, because you can go the other way. You can transpose it down, and you can create rather sensational sounds from this. And this is possible with a ring modulator as well. Here we had only 0, and we had, let's say, plus 100, minus 100 metrical system. I am now in the United States of America, yes. So this was one or the one or the second position of the ring modulator. But the ring modulator can do a lot of things. It can, for instance, go continuously from very high sound to very deep sound. So I started with this very, very high. Let's see, I started at the maximum. Let's say, call it plus 100. I started up here with this sound here. And the metal goes, you know, very tight all the way down here. To around the level, it never reached the level of the voice though, but still it goes very deep down, and it is not D1 or D1, but it is continuous glissando. It's a glissando of the metal sound. So let's listen to the metal sound going down like a kind of a river. And you know, I could stop this process on any of these places, stop it, and record it, right? So I could have any of these pitches in the glissando of this metal sound. Or I could do a lot of other things. The arrow was now more clear, what I wanted to do, it guided me in a way. So I could more clearly see the way to find out what to do with the material, the sound material. So we have now together two sources which are concrete. We have the voice and we have the metal. It's a lot of ways to combine them, of course. So I started to think of what I want to have the metal. I will rather have the metal to read the poem by Baudelaire. You know, these ideas. So when I'm talking to you, when you are talking to me, or even when you laugh, you know, you have I have to search for the word. Hold it. Let's amplitude of my voice is different than yours, and that's, you can read the voice like a fingerprint. You know that, surely. So when I'm talking to you, right, it goes like this. For instance, this is just a demonstration. It's because it's not like this, but perhaps it gives a picture of it. This can be one of my words. Says, for instance, America, right? This is my way of saying America. This can be the M, you know. E. This can be R. And this can be, well, something in, and this can be the last A, you know, America. And what's in between, you know, it's a mixture. So if we now run this through, it's called envelope follower. Is that what you call it? Yeah, envelope follower. The facilities in Warsaw they call it the amplitude gate, but I mean it's the same thing. So you can choose now. You can say that, for instance, that all the amplitudes below this are discriminated. That doesn't exist. So only this, right? This little whoops there, and this here, and they will give a signal somewhere which you can use for anything. You can use it for even open your garage, you know, or I mean do anything. Start the heater in your house or whatever you like. But I wanted to chop the lines of the glissando of the metal. I wanted the words from Baudelaire, read by this special voice, to open and close the metal sound. So each time the amplitude of her voice goes above this, and you can adjust this wherever you like, put it, you know. Above this, for instance, then the gates open and out pops a little bit of metal. Because the metal is behind that electronic gate, so every time she has will reach one of those tops there, then up goes the gate and out pops the metal and it crash, bang, you know, it's closed. So it's science, absolutely science. And that creates, I think, a very strange situation because, and also fascinating because, you know, then you get the impulses from the voice to guide a lot of the other musical parameters in the piece. Let's listen. We will first hear the voice, and then we will hear the gates working.
Quand dans j'ai son et en mon père dans ce fondra mon rêve
So this is the situation comes out like this, you know, small portions of metal moving in the rhythm of the speech, right? So you have this transform. This is in a way crazy when I think of it. The transform sound of a triangle, you know, reading a poem by Baudelaire. It's a long way to go. But I think the piece will. I hope the piece will justify the process. It was the only way I had to go, and I saw next corner, you know, a new arrow. The metal sound was not very beautiful, I think. So I sent it through a lot of old-fashioned equipment like amplification and also filters to clean it, to clean the sound of the metal, and also enlarge the metal sound of the metal, like blow up in the photographic process, and also put them together with a 3.5 seconds delay. I'd put it in 2 channels. Start with one channel and have the response to the other channel, like this. I don't know. I have a feeling that even if you don't know that the long way I went from Baudelaire or from the announcer in the Norwegian radio to the Baudelaire distorted poem and all this electronic gate string modulation and all this, I still think you will have a feeling that this is sounds created in a way comes from the voice, because I think this is. That's what I will the atavistic feeling. I mean that's so human. I mean the whole speech rhythm is so human. I mean so easy to recognize if you even if you don't know that you recognize it. That's one very private theory. You can argue with me after. I will be happy. Then let's see now. Let's put together some of these sounds. Let's put together the deep sound of the deep sound we started with. Let's put together the high metal sound went through the electronic gate. Let's hear the words coming and going in the poem. And yes, that's about all. In one of the channels, I always confused because I can say what's left and right, because for me this is right, you know, and for you this is left. This is also one of the messages, I think.
Rayonnant grave, vie, gravit, métal, dans, et
And as you heard with the cleaned and amplified sound from the metallics glissando, the conversation between the 2 channels, let's now put this together and make the delay so little that it's not it's possible to recognize. But you know, then you get this another big parameter of the music. You get the spacing. Things happens there, and you know it's all the time going like this.
rayonnant grave, vie, gravit, métal, dans,
The piece in itself has a rather conventional form in a way. it starts and ends with a kind of an adagio. And it is a rather percussive second part of it, and it is a very fast presto part of it, and it goes over then to this adagio. I must tell you something. When the piece was first performed, it was a lot of it was a lot of course, of critics there, and one of them I knew very well. He said, when the piece ended, he turned to me and said, "You, Anton Bruckner." Because I think the sound from the start and the ending has a kind of this, very broad, sustained sound. And that is the only electronic material in the whole thing. And that means that I wanted the piece to start below the noise level of the whole. And I wanted the sound to grow up, among people. So it had the effect I expected, because little by little people stopped talking, But it took quite a time. But that's and out of this comes very small, very small star silver tones in a way, and the silver tones are from the voice, and they are very, very high up. So that's the whole thing is voice, metal, and this noise sound. Material from electronic equipment. We can now, if you want, play the piece through and give the way free for attacks and things like that. We can discuss it, and I have some other material here where I even go further with the result. I would rather like to ask you: is it all right if you play the piece so you can hear where that arrow ended? Fine. I feel I must justify all this thing, It must be a piece. And it turned out to be a piece around 12 minutes. And I must say, really creates a difficult situation, I think, still, even if I'm a rather advanced listener, to listen to just to sit and to look at a tape machine running and things like this. So I like very much to, when I do this thing, to do some unusual things like putting out the light, so with the people don't have to look in the other eyes and things like this. But I think it's not necessary in this connection. So let's play this piece Solitaire. It's also from 1968, and it's made in the studio electronic music at the Polish Radio in Warsaw. So that was the result I achieved after all this thinking and feeling and following all kind of arrows. In the other piece, I'm not going to talk very long about, but in the other piece called Patch, I go much further, because I had in a way created with the Solitaire, I had made a kind of a new situation in the studio in Warsaw, because all the people comes in, they bring something new in, and I had put together the equipment in such a way that it produced a few new possibilities, and I wanted me to go further on, so I got a commission from the Polish Radio to make a piece. And the restrictions, they like restrictions, so they said only voices, nothing else. So I made a work entirely based on voices, nothing else, and the voices are so far gone. In the destruction. In a good way, I destroy in a way the first of all the semantics, of course, but and then all the other kinds of possibilities with the voice. So I've gone very far in this piece in this direction of the amplitude output of the voice. So I went back and let the new created material all the time go through new processes of in a way of the destruction. Is it? I mean, I know it's a very negative word in a way, but I mean, you know, for instance, when the sculptor César, when he takes a Cadillac 1967, you know, and throws into this one of these enormous James Bond machines, you know, who make crash, 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 and it's a square, and it's impossible to see anymore that it's a 67 Cadillac, but I mean, it still has a lot of the feeling of the world from which this piece of metal comes. And I've seen some of his things who were made from the distorted automobiles, which I think is rather impressive. So, if you would like to ask me questions concerning this piece, I would be very happy to answer, and we could perhaps have some arguing, which I like very much. Is there absolutely clear? Pardon? How long? You said what? I can't hear. The next piece is 9 minutes. We are not going to play the piece. I just want to mention it that I went with Parche. I went further on with the sound possibilities in the human voice. So I went on. It's a man all the way over there.
Yes, could I ask if you had a specific objective? For instance, was it your intent in distorting and changing the poem around to get behind the meaning of the poem and to sort of do an ultimate creation of the feeling that you had about the poem, or was it merely to take that as raw materials and to create something totally different?
If it had been as a raw material, I could have used the telephone directionary, you know? I mean, I could have read something from the telephone book. But of course, the poems means a lot to me, and it puts me in, since I'm rather emotional, you know, it puts me in a kind of a situation where I want to be while working. So this is rather emotional situation I put myself in, and the poem has a meaning to me, and the meaning is of course this world where sounds and lights blend. That's a basic thing.
Then this is really an amplification of the poem.
It's an what?
It's an amplification
Yes, right.
of the poem.
Yes, an emotional amplification of the poem. Was that the answer all right? Yes?
The music that you've made is not the performing varieties. Nobody is going to perform that again. How is this going to change the music scene? The fact that the new music can't be really performed.
A lot of the music can be performed. I think this was a performance. You just heard 12 minutes performance of the piece. And you will have another performance probably when you are in another mood. I mean, this will always be alive. I mean, it will distort more or less sound from the equipment, but reproducing it. Is it what you mean?
Well, yes, I see that this is a performance, but say we can have Bach now indefinitely. Will we have this tape indefinitely?
I don't catch it.
In time, you know, how long will this tape be around for others to hear?
Oh, I ran into that question before. That's right. It will probably go away in some time. I think that, but still, we know that the time of the tape is over in a way. It's a new way to store sound now, right? Which will stay there forever. This has some physical, some chemical processes in it, you know, which will go away. But the time of the tape is probably almost over. I think it must be other possibilities for recording sound. What do you think? But and you mentioned a very dear colleague. You mentioned Paul Johann Sebastian. What is he within here?
Just a name.
It's Paul. It's a very good name. It's and you know, the performance of his things are rather difficult to say how it should be. You know.
Perhaps,
Yeah.
perhaps another thing that bothers me is that this, as long as it stays around, will never change, or a very small amount of change.
That's right.
A performance of Bach, say, can be interpreted different ways by a performer.
That's right. I agree with you in this respect. But then we have also other technique to meet this. This is one meal. And we have other technique. We have, for instance, the technique of permutations. Right? We can play with the computers. We can alter the sound continuously. We can make. I will tell you, I made a piece which lasted 102 years without repetition. That's a rather long piece. And, this is only made possible through some very easy ways of storing material on 6 different loops. And I think this fits in one situation. What you are asking for is quite another situation. And then we have something else. You are you, and you are you now, but you are not you tomorrow as you are today. I mean, so you will also have other needs tomorrow. I think it's one of my. I think he was first.